Hey everybody, it's Karyn Bryant. Welcome to the MMA podcast. I'm KB.
What's up, KB? It's Alan Joban here.
Back from vacation. Listen, we're going to talk about UFC Portland. We'll talk about Lineker and Dodson. We'll talk about Oliveira and Brooks. We'll talk about some of these upsets that were on the card. Look ahead to 204. But the fans got to know, how was your vacation? You went to one of the fight capitals, the Muay Thai Mecca. You went to Thailand. How was it?
Yeah, it was good. It was great. It was much needed. We had been meaning to go to Thailand for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
That's the last time we've been back. My wife is Thai, and her family has not yet met our son.
Right.
So that was a big deal for us to go back and let her family meet our son. And the vacation was beautiful. The travel, not so much. As I mentioned earlier, it is a long ass flight to Thailand. If you've never been, it's about, a 13-hour flight
Yeah.
plus our flight, 20 hours of flying. Plus, we went to Phuket, which is another hour and a half.
Right.
And anywhere you go is a lot of driving time. So,
Right.
no to people that want to go to Thailand. Thailand is beautiful. If you could avoid bringing your kid, maybe you want to try that, explore that option. Either way, it's a great place, though.
Yeah, very nice. No, I get it. We're going to go on vacation coming up. We're going to go to Mexico. And there were some day trips that we were looking at. It's just going to be me and Wade day trips. But they were like, oh, that's, 3 hours away. I'm like, nope. Not on my vacation. I got no time for a car on my vacation. I live in LA. I don't want to be in a car.
And it's like we get to Bangkok, and the first thing they're talking about is the Bangkok traffic. And I'm
Right.
like, everywhere you go, they talk about the traffic, and you don't want to be around that. You want to be on the beach.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're back. People were missing you and everything, but we have to let you get a break. How much is the hair grown back? I think your hair grows incredibly fast, doesn't it?
A little bit, but I'm about to shave it again, so I'm gonna keep going short for a little while, maybe grow it out later, but I'm gonna play with it for now.
All right, very nice. Well, here we go. We're about to get into round one here, and we do want to talk about the fight that was the main event at UFC Portland. It was a split decision win for John Lineker. And, we were kind of laughing that when Bruce Buffer reads the announcement, John, they're both named John. They're both like, all right, come on, come on, come on, come on. I agree with it, or not, maybe not agree, but I could see how it was a split decision. It was a tricky fight to score. Personally, I saw Lineker winning it, but I'm not thinking it was, if Dodson had gotten the nod, I would have been like, all right, I get it. How did you feel about it?
I agree. I didn't get to watch the post-fight show, so I don't really know how all the other experts saw the fight, but I know how I watched it. I was scoring it live,
Yep.
and I gave Lineker as well. I gave Lineker, I believe I gave him 1 and 2. I gave Dotson 3 and 4, and then I gave Lineker number 5. And that could have been, like, I might have that mixed up,
Right.
but I did give Lineker the win 3-2, 3 rounds to 2. So I agree. So many things about that fight. A fun, exciting
Yeah, it was
fight.
fun.
To start off with who gets the win, I gave it to Lineker because he pushed the pace the entire fight. He walked forward and he had the bigger shots. He was landing the bigger shots. Surprisingly enough, John Dodson wore the impact very well. He didn't
Yeah, he
he
didn't show
wasn't
anything.
didn't look beat up at all. Whereas Lineker actually was the one
Yeah.
carrying the black eye.
Yeah.
But even though that said, I think about 50% of Lineker's shots landed to the body. So I was scoring those body shots, and then the ones upstairs didn't show too much around the face, but they were definitely landing. You could
Right.
see them landing very powerful. And credit to both guys' chin. Oh my God, both guys took some heavy shots and never really stumbled
Yeah.
in that fight.
Did you see that? Well, I forget what round it was. Dodson threw up a head kick and Lineker leaned into it and just ate it and just kept going. We're like, what the hell is that dude made
That
of?
was,
I mean, yeah. Well, I think when you look at your scoring, round three to me was when Lineker really heated up, and so that's when I thought, this is starting to get to be his fight. I thought he had the momentum. Like I said, it was so close to score. When you actually look at the numbers, the significant strikes thrown, Lineker threw way more than Dodson, almost like 100 more or something. But the amount that landed, the percentage that landed was pretty even for them. So the people in favor of Dodson are saying, hey, listen, he sat there more like a sniper, timed his better, didn't have to work with the volume as much because his were better placed and had better accuracy. So I see that argument. For me, it was a few things. It was the moments where I kind of saw Lineker do his whole thing where he kind of plants down and just that whole rock'em sock'em robot. I thought most of the time he seemed to win those blasts, you know what I mean, of exchanges. And much credit to John Dodson, though, like you said, the fact that he could handle that, because as we know, a lot of people have fallen to Lineker for that. But I did see it going his way. I wasn't surprised, and it did get to me. There's circling and resetting, and then there's just straight up running away. And I did start to think there were points where Dodson was like, well, you know what, let me just like not be here right now. And it did seem like he was just trying to leave.
Yeah, he didn't want any part of having his back on
Right.
squared up against Lineker. He was always trying to a little bit of an exit.
Yes.
Which
is smart. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying he's not a smart guy.
Absolutely. In fact, it's just nobody wants to be in that position.
Right.
Part of the reason the judges scored it that way, as I and you did as well, is because, like he said, when they got into the exchanges where they were just throwing, I felt like Lineker was edging off those. Yeah. But then also when it came to the power shots landed, Dodson landed a lot of power shots. But like you said, the same thing. The head kick is a perfect one. Even though the head kick was a beautiful kick, and it definitely scored, the way that he shook it off.
Right.
It almost like discredited it in my eyes.
I know, it was like, oh, nice try.
Right. He hit him hard,
yeah.
But then come forward and Lineker would throw 2 or 3 shots right back at him. It was like, okay, that landed, but how much damage can you really say it caused when it didn't hurt him at all, and he's pushing forward still? So you almost had to discredit some of Dodson's offense and give Lineker the edge on it, because when Lineker would throw shots, Dodson wanted nothing to do with it. But he was Lineker was walking through Dodson's a little bit, so that's what and then the forward pressure is what gave him the decision in my eyes.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that in terms of the like I said, we're going to go through the first 2 rounds on this fight. The thing that gave or I know the damage thing. Okay, yeah, you look at Lineker and he looks all busted up, and John looked fresh and didn't look like he'd been a fight. And I get that damage can influence the judges and make people think that somebody want to fight. But then again, I look at guys like, Nick and Nate Diaz, they cut very easily. Doesn't really mean their asses are getting kicked. You know what I mean? Some people just have faces that cut easier than others. Some people are just much more resilient. So it's hard. And I understand that it's like a visceral reaction to go like, that guy looks like he got, looks beat up, but it doesn't always tell the story.
You were so spot on with this, Karyn. This is the exact thought that I had during this fight. The thing that scores the most is damage, but you have to look at it. Blood is the most significant eye-popping thing that you see. When you see damage, is when you see blood. But like you said, some people cut very easily. So there's a shot that might give a guy a concussion, but he continues to fight, or a shot that gives the guy a cut. How do you score that? That's when it just gets very, very split decision. It's what did the judges see? But to talk more on what you to piggyback off of what you were just talking about, I think in my last fight against Bilal Muhammad, this guy could take a punch and he wore it very well. I landed a ton of strikes, like say 50 power shots on him, and I dropped him 3 times. At the fight, all he had was like 3 stitches in his nose. His eyes weren't shut. He wasn't cut and bleeding.
What the hell, man?
So he wore it very well. So it's hard to really decide. Maybe if I would have been fighting Nick Diaz might have had 4 or 5 cuts on him, and it looked like I mopped him up. So some guys wear the damage very well. It's hard to see who's actually that hurt or who's that, But so you have to, like I'm agreeing with you, score it. Who's landing flush and go from there, not necessarily be tricked by the blood or the black eye.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do need to figure out then what comes next. Okay, so John Lineker missed weight, which is John.
Right?
John. 5th time he's missed weight. Obviously the story is that he was a 25er. They got fed up with him missing weight so much, so they made him become a 35er. And obviously he can kick butt at 35 too. That's not the issue.
He's the Rumble Johnson of the lighter class.
Exactly. So he misses weight. And for this one, it was a half a pound. And the story on this one is that, according to his manager, Alex Davis, he had actually been on weight 2 days prior. And then the last couple days, they were just trying to maintain that. And, the old my scale, your scale, but, his scale in his room said one thing, then he gets there and says another. And that he said, listen, if we had only had a half an hour more, we should have totally made the weight. Because he was only half a pound over. And, they said, it was a mistake of the scales. It could totally be true. It doesn't matter though, because that kind of sucks, and he has to make the weight. So it's hard to say, okay, this guy gets a title shot next when he misses weight like that. What do you think of it?
I agree. We're professionals, and I think Ill Will said it. We're professionals here to make weight. You can't think that the scale that you got at Rite Aid is going to be the official weight. You have to it as a gauge. Okay, I'm 2 to 3 pounds within my limit. You're gauging yourself, but this is not the official scale, and everybody knows that. He's a professional. He's got a lot of fights. You gauge yourself during your weight cut with your personal scale, and then you make small trips downstairs on the official scale and check it periodically. He obviously did not do that, and he's kind of blaming it. It's not a professional. That's something that happens in amateurs. As of what to do next with these guys, I'm a fan of Lineker now. Yeah. This fight kind of made him a bigger name in my eyes. Like you said, he missed weight. Does he deserve a title shot? No. I think that the matchup that I want to see, the dream matchup for me, is John Lineker and Cody Garbrandt.
Nice. Yeah.
The hard hitters, the guys that don't back up. Cody Garbrandt says he won't back up. He's going to knock out put in front of him. Put John Lineker in front of him. If he can knock out John Lineker, Cody Garbrandt gets the next title shot. If John Lineker makes weight and beats Garbrandt, then he gets it. But in the meantime, I think maybe unless these guys have fights lined up, a Dillashaw-Cruz rematch would be perfect for me. Yeah. And then the winner of Lineker and Cody Garbrandt would get the winner of that.
It's interesting because so far there seems to be a lot of heat on Cody Garbrandt getting that title fight with Dominic because they've talked a lot of crap and they've built that storyline up and obviously they want to make fights that people want to see. So I do like that, but clearly there are a lot of people numerically in front of Cody because going into this fight, John Lineker was ranked number 3, Dodson was number 10. So it doesn't necessarily make Lineker go any higher. Obviously we have the champ and then it's TJ Dillashaw, then Rafael Assunção, and then Lineker. They're not going to make Lineker fight Assunção. They're not going to square off 2 Brazilians, the only 2 Brazilians in the top 10. Jimmy Rivera is there now after beating Uriah Faber. Part of me, there goes my earring. So we'll just do one. It's like an 80s thing. I got one earring. Bye. But part of me wants to see Lineker Dillashaw. Part of me, I don't know. I just think it's kind of cool that right now there's a lot of excitement at 35 and there's a lot of good fighters here. So I think there are some cool matchups. If Cody doesn't get it, is Dillashaw the right next one? I don't know. I kind of like seeing new challengers. I kind of like to see a different storyline that I haven't seen with a champion, So for that reason, I would probably maybe not pick TJ for a rematch. I don't know.
You're saying you'd like to see Lineker versus Dillashaw.
Lineker versus Dillashaw, maybe, and that winner gets the title shot if Cody gets the next shot, he might just, like we said, might get to jump this line. But if not, I would totally pay for Garbrandt Lineker.
Yeah, I could see if Cody did get the title shot, it kind of reminds me of a Dan Hardy. Yeah, he comes to the UFC, gets his name out there really fast, 4 wins or however many wins Garbrandt has now, and now he's right there in the title picture. Skip the line a little bit. And look, I'm not mad at this fight. I would love to see this fight, but I would like to see him maybe get one more big win over a name before he gets the title shot. So either way, fun fights in the division.
Absolutely. Well, now, we're between rounds here. And the other thing about that is, Dominic is on another level. I don't think it would be a terrible thing for Cody to get one more fight before he challenges somebody as difficult as Dominic, But, it's hard to say. I could see Rivera fighting Assunção or something, get, number 3 and number 2 up in there. It's some fun stuff.
An interesting thing about that is, John Dodson is such an athlete, such an incredible, such good footwork, and he's probably one of the guys in the division. Lineker was, you could say yes and no that he was able to land on him. He threw a certain amount of shots and maybe only landed half of them, but the ones that landed counted and it got him the win. So if John Lineker could land 50% of his shots and win the fight against Dodson, how does that translate against somebody like TJ Dillashaw, who is so mobile? Is TJ Dillashaw a more mobile fighter than than John Dodson? You might argue yes, but in a different way. So it's a lot of intriguing matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to come for that division, which is fun. We're now in round 3. We wanted to talk about the co-main event. This one was Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Will Brooks. Oliveira missed weight by more than 5 pounds. Does say that it's going to be the last fight he does at 155 and that he's going to be a 170. Or he's been up there before. He's kind of gone back and forth. He looked very big in there against Will Brooks, though, so he definitely seems like a welterweight to me. I feel bad because in the fight, Will Brooks had a rib injury that became very obvious, and you could tell that it started to just maybe mentally defeat him in there too. And I don't know, you're the fighter, but how frustrating that must be when you can't perform the way you want to because your body isn't letting you. And then I don't know how that kind of progresses, like how much you can try, but something like a rib, which gets targeted a lot, which is, the guys at the show, Sugar was even saying, he's like, it may not even be from a punch. Sometimes it's from the grappling. Sometimes it's from the positioning that, somebody's got you squeezing real tight and pops something out. So it's not even necessarily about a punch. So I felt bad for Will Brooks in that fight. Just had a lot of things going against him.
Yeah, it's tough. A rib injury is the worst. And like you said, it might not have been specifically from a shot that Cowboy threw, but because I think DC read his lips in a corner and he told his corner my rib popped.
Okay.
So as my rib popped, that leads me to believe that it's exactly like he said. It's not necessarily from a shot, but it just popped. That's
right.
It happened, especially during grappling, or specifically during grappling on a cage where you're using your
right.
More than likely would happen. And I've done the same thing. My rib is popped where you're tearing the cartilage in the rib, not breaking the bone. To be honest, it's better for you to break the damn rib than to tear the cartilage because, like anything, a bone heals in 6 to 8 weeks. Cartilage takes about 3 to 4 months. Right. So the rib, tearing cartilage in the rib, if that's what indeed happened, it sucks. And for him to fight as long as he did, credit to him because he was grimacing the entire.
Looking at the clock, wondering like.
It made me think in my head while I'm watching him fight. Okay, maybe he thinks in his head that we don't know that he's injured.
Right.
The audience, the viewers knew because DC read the lips, so we're all aware of it. But he's probably thinking, they don't know what's wrong with me. Why am I losing the fight? I was wondering if he was grimacing to kind of let the audience know, look, there's something wrong. Forming, or if he was literally in that much pain that he just couldn't hide the poker face anymore. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because those kind of things, like when I was fighting with my broken hand that last fight, I was trying not to show it at all, but there's so much you could do. And next thing you know, like the momentum shifts, the commentators are like, Alan's tired, and you want to let him know, look, I'm not tired, I'm hurt. So I was wondering what was going through Will Brooks' head. Like, is he concerned about that at all, what people are thinking, or is he just concerned about trying to survive and maintain the win? But it does suck for him because it didn't show the true him. Right. I don't know if he necessarily would have won that fight because he was kind of getting controlled pretty good before the rib.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of comeback he had or what he had to show later in the fight, so we didn't get to really see it.
Yeah, he won his first fight in the UFC against Ross Pearson. That was a split decision, and this was tough. I do think he was in a lot of pain. He went right out on a stretcher to the hospital right after the fight. So I do think the grimacing was real pain, but like you said, maybe also to sort of signal this is why I'm not the real Will Brooks here that you're used to seeing. Question for you, after the fight, they kind of threw their mouthpieces at each other and there was some, back and forth, and people were kind of frustrated with Oliveira anyway because he came in overweight, and then afterwards they thought he wasn't being a good sport. He said it's because Will had insulted his mom the day before at the weigh-ins, because Will was obviously very mad that Alex didn't make the weight. Here's what, according to my friend Evie, who I do Trocasao with my Português language podcast. She's Brazilian. She said basically when a Brazilian, some people who don't understand it, if they hear mother effer, right? If somebody calls you a mother effer, because of the language, because of the whatever translation, they think you called their mother a whore. Basically, it's the worst thing. And you don't mess with a Brazilian and their parent. Like, it's all about the respect. So it's a language barrier thing. I'm not saying the scuffle is justified or whatever. I know the emotions are all really high, but I believe that that's what it was. And he felt like, Brooks had disrespected his mom.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, sounds very similar to the Verdum incident.
Exactly.
The effort, the language interpretation, run off. I have to agree. Watching it live as it happened in DC, I think it was DC was kind of saying that this is going to kind of taint his
Yeah.
victory. He didn't exactly gain any fans
No,
by
he
it.
didn't.
Like no one was cheering.
I
They were
know.
pretty much booing him. And like you said, he missed weight.
Yeah.
He came out, fought strongly, and
Yeah.
I think he probably would have won regardless, just because he was
Right.
able to kind of bigger, stronger guy in that fight. But with the rib injury, it put a little doubt in your head of what would have actually happened if his
Right.
rib wasn't injured. The weight cut and then what happened after. It puts a little doubt. At the end of the day, the thing about fighting is you look and you see a win and a loss.
Yeah.
You look at the record and that's pretty much it. Nobody really goes back and says, "Oh,
That
but
was
that's
the time when, right.
yeah." Only the diehards are the people that are thinking of it that way. But at the end of the day, when they're matchmaking, they just say this guy won or this
Right.
guy lost. That's really what's important. So at the end of the day, his stock still rose from that win, but he didn't do himself a favor building fans a trust amongst other fans or fighters by doing those kind of antics after the fight.
But the thing about it is Cowboy, when he first came on the scene, everybody liked him, and we did a lot of talking about how he's kind of like the other Cowboy, like he'll fight anybody, he's coming on short notice, he's done this and that. So he actually, and the way he does fight is kind of fan friendly. He's he is likable, but yeah, maybe with this situation he won't win fans. But guess what? People put money down to watch somebody they don't like get their ass handed to him too. Do you know what I mean? So it's good for his stock regardless, because the next time he fights somebody, yeah, he might be the bad guy and, can come in and play that off too. You never know. But as we go through here, we are in round 4 now. I want to pick up on something that you talked about there with some underdogs there. So this was a night where 7 underdogs paid off, which is not that common, and in this fight, Alex Oliveira had actually been a plus 250 dog to a minus 325 for Will Brooks. And I'm wondering, I think we have talked about this before, but the pluses and minuses, I guess, of taking a short notice fight, coming and being an underdog. I guess the biggest story on there was Brandon Moreno against Louis Smolka. He was a plus 350 to Smolka's minus 500. Okay. Yeah. And so then he came in there and got that amazing submission. So, for you, if you get a late notice replacement, which you've gotten before, how much does that throw you off? Like if you're Smolka, how much did that maybe mess with you, and how much did that contribute to maybe this random guy, no disrespect, but coming in and just taking your fight?
Yeah, I mean, I always use Bisping as my perfect example.
Amazing example. Best example ever.
I got nothing to lose.
Right.
I got nothing. Moreno probably went in there with that same attitude. Yeah. And the thing that I found fascinating, this is the fight where he guillotined Smolka, correct? Yeah. He got him with a guillotine. Yeah. And Smolka was the one that was like so comfortable off of his back.
Such a scrambler, and yeah.
I remember thinking when Smolka shot in on Moreno, he left his neck very much exposed. And I remember instantly thinking, wow, this guy has got a trick up his sleeve. He's very calm. He gives him his neck because he knows he's probably going to jump to the other side of his body and defend it right away. But, man, Moreno, I would look at him and be like, if this guy was a black belt at any one grappling technique, it's probably his guillotine. Because the way that he does his guillotine, they call that a 10th planet, we call that a marcellatine.
Okay.
The way that he put his elbow over the back, it's hard to defend it because you're hiding. You usually try to grab one hand and
right.
Yeah, or throw one arm over. That's kind of.
Right. But usually, yeah, you're going to start. Right.
Where he choked him and he threw another arm over the back. It was an odd looking shoulder move. We kind of call that a marcellatine because it's impossible to defend. There's no way to reach that other hand because it's hidden back. And the way he threw that on right away, I was like, oh, that's nasty. That's nasty. That's going to be hard to get out of. Nice. And he kept that marcellatine when they swept each other. He went to the mount, kept the marcellatine back into it. That's a really beautiful guillotine that he has. Yeah. And I think Smolka just underestimated that one move that he had. And man, but he put it on it. He landed that one. That was on the money, that choke.
Yeah, it was. And so he's on Joseph Benavidez's team on Tough 24, right? And he lost his first fight. He was actually seeded 16th. And for people who, if they're not watching, you should, because the fights are really good. But the way they did it is if a coach picked a fighter, the other team automatically got the sort of opposite seed to that number. Right. So Brandon is a very close friend of Henry Cejudo's, but Henry didn't pick him right away. He picked Pantoja, or no, that's who he had to fight the first time. But regardless, whoever he picked first, meant that Brandon Moreno had to go to Joseph's team, and he was seeded 16th. So he ended up losing his first fight on the show, but he went to, somebody very highly ranked, and everybody was like, hey, buck up, kiddo, you'll get him next time. So he gets his short notice fight, comes in. I actually called Henry, talked to him before the show. He said, yeah, a year ago, I was picking this kid up at the Greyhound station. He said, he's literally a guy that his family, made piñatas and stuff. And I literally picked him up at the Greyhound station, started training, and he said, like, tonight is going to change his life, and he's really going out there to fight for Mexico, and just prove a lot for the Mexican people. Like, he did all that and then some. Like, he couldn't have done a better job coming in on short notice and winning this fight.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him the whole fight, and I'm thinking, this kid looks so familiar. I don't know why. On the actual show right now.
He's still on, yeah. So his season is still on right now, but he lost his first fight, so that frees him up to come in and and fight, because obviously he's not going forward in the competition. So it's just a cool story. And I don't know if you heard, we were laughing at this, that DC branded him the Mexican McLovin, because he looks like McLovin. I was like, that is so good, right?
I gotta admit, it was a pretty good comparison.
Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is, too, is afterwards, Eric Albarracin, who is the wrestling coach on the show, he even said, he tweeted out, I gave everybody their nicknames, but he said DC gave him Mexican McLovin. He's like, we're keeping that. That is good, which is, it's very funny. It's hard not to like that guy. All right, Alan, so now, go ahead.
Is he the first ever contestant on The Ultimate Fighter who's simultaneously fighting in the UFC while the show's going on?
See, you're going to ask me that, and he may be the closest one after that I remember is Eric Spicely, who was on the last season. He was on Claudia's team, and it was not long after that show ended, or it might have been before, he fought Sam Alvey, and he lost badly. And then he actually got another short notice fight the other day when he took on Thiago Marreta, and he won that fight. But he's in my recent memory anyway, because it was just last season. The show was done, I think, before he got his fight, but like it was sort of surprising. Like, out of everybody, I think two people were surprised that Spicely was the guy that was getting fights. Yeah. So lost his first one, but then he beat a very good fighter. So so good on him. Well, you mentioned Michael Bisping. Here we are in round 5 and want to preview UFC 204. Obviously, it is this weekend. Michael's going to defend against Dan Henderson, who, of course, we know the famous knockout at UFC 100. Do you think Dan still has enough in him to get it done? I don't know how to phrase the question. I mean, I love Dan Henderson, but I don't know if it's going to go his way.
I'm torn on this one, Karyn. I'm torn because it's like, my heart kind of wants the Cinderella story for Dan.
But the Cinderella story is Michael getting revenge, isn't it?
Karyn.
There's two.
It's his last fight, right? So
Dan said win, lose, draw, he's done.
Done. And so it's hard for me to root against them.
One title he hasn't gotten is the UFC title.
And it's like, he's obviously slowed down. Yeah. He's obviously gotten older. He obviously doesn't quite have what he used to have.
Right.
But damn it, does he still do the same shit? I mean, like it's like he doesn't have the footwork and the explosiveness and the, like, almost buoyancy, the bounce that a younger guy or he used to have as a younger Henderson. But when he does decide to go, he still goes 100 miles an hour. Like, I feel like his 100% is still the same 100% that he had back then. It's just the in-between that's slower. Right. So if he can go 100% at the right timing, obviously he can knock out anybody in the world. Yeah. So I still give him a chance against Bisping. I love that Bisping's promoting his left hook now. He's like,
nobody's Larry. Yeah.
Took down the GOAT with the left hook. I won the fight with the left hook. So, man, I'm really kind of torn on this one. I feel like Bisping he's peaking right now in his career, and he's got the momentum.
He's fighting at home in England.
Yeah, he's at home. He's never lost, I think he said. Let me hear what you have to say about this, Karyn.
My take on this is everything that you just said about Dan, and that, yes, power is the last thing to go, and that Dan, even what fight was it where he threw a head kick? Where did that come from? Right, so he hasn't completely given up, and he's still, you can tell the passion is still there, and he still loves what he does, and he still tries like hell when he's in there. For me, if I was Dan Henderson, I would, obviously he's going to have to try to get this fight done as fast as possible because Michael doesn't slow down. Michael, if even his detractors will sing his praises when it comes to endurance, when it comes to him being able to stay in a fight for a long time. And I think that obviously the longer it goes, the more it benefits Michael, because he's just built for that kind of fight more. And, Michael maybe isn't the most powerful guy, but he throws volume. And I think he's going to be able to find Dan. I think obviously he's going to be faster than Dan. I think so. He will have those advantages. Also, the fact that Michael's issues are with the right side of his body, which is why left-handed fighters, Luke Rockhold, lefties, can get him. Dan throws a big, huge right. So Michael's fine on this side. So I feel like he'll be better prepared. He'll see that coming. I guess the problem would be is if Dan works the jab to that side of the face. You know what I mean? If that starts to become a problem, if he gets hit there a lot early, that could become a problem. But I feel like Michael has all of the advantages going into this right now. Like I said, momentum, home game, youth. I feel like he has all of that going for him, and how much this fight means to him to get back the worst knockout of his life. I think he's going to be hard to beat. He's going to be hard to beat.
Impressed by that breakdown,
My
Karyn.
rant, yes.
Always. You've been doing your homework.
I have.
I have to my biggest note that I took from what you just broke down for me so eloquently, the endurance. It is a 5-round fight. He does have amazing cardio. He's shown that before. Dan Henderson, as he gets older, the power is still there, but the cardio, the legs will never be the same. I'll leave it with this. If Dan doesn't catch him in early rounds, Michael Bisping's going to run away with it. Yeah. We'll see, catch him early. But, I'm still kind of torn with this one. I don't know who I want to go for.
Yeah, I don't know. The other issue is they will be fighting at about 5 a.m. because they're doing it. I'm going to be in the studio for this one at Fox. The weigh-in show, actually I have a very early call time for that on Friday. The weigh-in show they're going to do for the locals, and the benefit of the locals and the timing there. But the actual fights are very late at night, early morning. So it'll be for sort of American audience benefit, with the pay-per-view, the regular pay-per-view time. So that is another factor. I know Michael's over there already, H.E.A.T. They're trying to stay up as late as they can because they're fighting, then start training at 3 a.m. and everything, because that's going to be a factor as well. Michael is already there. I'm sure Dan's going over there too. It's not like a huge, from LA to England, it is a bigger time difference, so Hendo getting acclimated. He's obviously a professional, and I don't think that he'll have a hard time necessarily, but it is a factor.
It's something we always factor. I mean, when you go, you're always wondering what time you're fighting. But they're fighting at 5 a.m. over there, but it's still 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. here, correct?
It's our time, right. But, you have to condition your body to be ready to fight, make your ring walk at 3:30 in the morning or whatever, and that's just something.
Right. And so like what he's probably going to do, which is what I fought at different times, but the one that brings to mind is when I fought in Brazil. Yeah. I fought at like 3:30 in the morning. Right. And so what we did every night, which 3:30 in the morning was like, 8:30 at night here. Right. So we stayed up all night. We stayed on LA time while we were in Brazil. I'm presuming that's what Dan might do as well. When he's over there, he's not going to adjust or acclimate to their time zone. He's just going to stay up throughout the nights, have late night workouts, work out at 2 a.m. That way your body's used to working out late at night. And that way it's not really changing your sleep pattern, except for your sleeping during the daytime over there. Yeah,
I think so. Well, so for sure, we have Wade shot. They did an open workout a couple weeks ago at UFC Gym in Torrance. So if you go to MMAHeat.com, and we'll repost it on Facebook, but if you go to MMAHeat.com, we have Dan Henderson talking to the media in a scrum and working out. We have Michael Bisping talking to the media and working out. Just yesterday or today, we put up our last night, Gegard Mousasi interview. And listen, people should know this by now, Alan. I said it. We titled it The Only Gegard Mousasi Interview You Need to See, because it's a fact. We've been friends for a long time now. He tells me more than he'll tell anybody else, so nobody should waste their time going anywhere else, because I mean, this is something I'm very sure of. I get the best interviews with him. That is a fact. So it's up to people can check that out.
He breaks down the walls.
Yes.
When you give him a good stare and he sees Karyn, Bryant smiling.
He's like, hey, it's my buddy. Yeah. I mean, really, honestly, I've known him now for a long time, and it's just some people you just get along with really well. And even from the very first time we ever did an interview, we were like, you're cool. It was just easy.
No, that's great. You've
Yeah.
always said great things about how he's really genuinely such a nice guy and a
Yes.
good guy. And it's really made me more of a fan of him because
Cool.
he's so reserved that you don't really know how to feel about him.
Right.
But knowing he is that good of a person, from what you've told me, is good to know. It makes me like him a lot more.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. Good sense of humor and everything. So obviously in the co-main event, he's fighting Vitor Belfort. As I said, so I'll be doing the weigh-in show and working this weekend. And I believe I'm with two champs. I think I'm with Dom in DC. So this could be fun. And then also later this week, Evie and I will put out another version of Trocasau. So you guys can look for that one as well. So Alan, you're back at the gym and everything like full force?
I'm grappling and this and that. I go this week to get my hand checked, hopefully get cleared. The doctor might tell me a couple more weeks,
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm approaching my third month since surgery, and usually it's about 3 to 4 months before you can get cleared to punch again. So I'm very soon into doing that, and we're starting to kind of maybe create conversation with Joe Silva about getting a fight in December. So everything's, I'm still creeping towards that end goal, but not quite there yet.
Nice. Well, I was talking to you about this and Pat Cote about this. I know that's a fight that could be kind of cool for the two of you. And I even put this out there online the other day. I actually talked to Pat about it. He doesn't think he'll fight before the end of this year, but early 2017 could be good for him. His wife, they finally just had their baby the other day. So he's kind of like in daddy mode right now. And was thinking, the early 2017 would probably be next for him. So I still think that's a cool matchup for you two, but that would be the timing, in my understanding.
Good to know. I appreciate the insight.
Yes.
Now, move further, move past him, and look for somebody else. But good to know.
Right.
Appreciate that.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Alan, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, at Alan Joban, AlanJouban.
All right. And I'm at Karyn Bryant on Twitter, KB Heat on Instagram. We have MMA Heat on Facebook and MMAHeat.com. Also on YouTube, you can look for me on the Karyn Bryant channel. And we also have an MMA Heat channel. Alan, thank you. And Wade will be back. So I think next week we can maybe do it again in person before we head out on our vacation.
Sounds good.
All right. Take it easy.
Guys.